Hello and happy new year from HQ. We're wishing you and your family all the best. We have a lot to unpack today, and we've got our guy, Hank Boomershine, is going to be with us live. He's going to answer all your questions right after you get to watch something that's about to transform this sport. Listen, some of these segments were pre-recorded, so and you'll see why for obvious reasons. There's just a lot to unpack here, and be sure to stay tuned toward the end because we're going to give away a few prizes, and Hank is going to answer all of your questions. Without further ado, here is Hank.
Hey, Storm Nation. Hank Boomershine here, Chief Technology Officer for Storm Products. A lot of things have gone on here in the last 6 months at Storm Products. We've created this innovation division. Tyler Jensen and his thought process about really let's push and advance what we're doing at Storm Products, not just in bowling ball design, a lot of different things within the bowling industry. So he tasked me the job of taking over the innovation division and really trying to bring some new things and some new technologies to the table. And so here we are, the very first in the really big innovation that we've brought to the market in 2026 is the transformer and the Morphwing core. There's a lot of technology here. There's things that haven't really been discussed, and you're going to learn a lot of things from myself and Alex Hoskins over the next couple of episodes that we're going to bring to you. This is something that with the removal of weight holes from the industry and from being able to put weight holes in a bowling ball, we were limited just to fingers and thumbs in a bowling ball. And so in the past, we could always transform or change the shape and dynamics of the ball a little bit by adding the extra holes in other spots. And we've always kind of built and designed around shape, and we've built and designed around manipulation of masses. We've been doing this for decades. We've been doing it that you can alter the way that ball reads the lane, where it reads the lane front to back. The moments of inertia can change a little bit by where we put the holes. And we continue to design, and this really is pushing an advancement in something called torque-induced precession. Alex is going to talk you through that in the very first episode. And that we've focused so much in the bowling industry over many of the years about precession and about the balls flaring, and that's torque-free precession. That's the axis moving across the surface of the ball. But what's going on inside and how that weight block is precessioning or gaining or losing rotation as it's traveling down the lane has never really been taught like we're going to teach it to you. You're going to have a chance to see the insights and how this manipulation and change to the shape can really enhance or take away that precession. We can either lose or gain axis rotation as that ball is traveling down the lane. And we know that we want entry angle into the pocket. That's the magic of carry. We've done a tremendous amount of studies on pin carry and pinfall with a stationary ramp and angles and changing all that. And we know that if we can gain entry angle or a little more precession or axis rotation, that we can gain a little more carry. We're giving you a core and some technology that pushes that we can change that. We can make that ball shape differently down lane by how we drill it. So lots of good stuff coming in. First episode, Alex is going to talk a lot about the shape itself. Second episode, you're going to get to see Anthony Simonson, one of the greatest in the world, one of the best two-handers to ever put his shoes on. He's going to have a couple different layouts and show you how manipulating can change that precession. We can gain it or we can lose it. And then the last episode, you're going to see Gio, one of our in-house R&D guys, one of our really prolific bowlers for us, one of the best testers we use. He's also going to show us what happens to that when we change that shape a little bit by drilling through the wing or leaving the wing intact, how we can change that ball motion dramatically. And in the end, I'll be here to answer some questions for you about this technology and anything else you guys want to chat about here. But man, I look forward to this. I look forward to this next generation, this next time frame for myself and this company in this innovation division. Myself and many others, Alex Hoskins, Gio, all of them, Steve Klemkin, Chad McLean, everybody in this team We're all about innovation. We're all about bringing this innovation to you, to our fans. And we're very excited about this, and we look forward to you tuning in. And I also look forward to you and the pro shops. We'll be out on the road in January, 13 different cities across the country, to have a chance and opportunity to see the technology up close and also ask questions and get a better education about what's going on in the world of bowling from Storm Products. Thanks again for tuning in. Bowl up a storm.
Hey SPI fans, Alex Hoskins here with you, and I'm the Director of Research and Development here at Storm Products. And today I'm really excited to talk with you about some brand new technology from the Rotogrip brand, the Transformer. Now the Transformer is the first ever HP 5-ball, and there is a ton of new technology on the inside that we're going to be looking at today. You see, I have a few visual aids on the table here, and we're going to go over some of the technicalities of this bowling ball, starting with the cover. This has the VR1 solid reactive cover. Now that's the same cover that was on the Gremlin, but it is the solid version and it is nano free. So this gives you a lot of versatility in the cover, and you're going to see when we get to the weight block here, we're able to change the ball reaction of this quite a bit. So it's really good to have that VR1 cover stock on there that's going to allow you to get more left if you need, or use a little bit more surface in higher volumes of oil. But moving into the center, we have the Morph wing core. And just like you hear in the name, wing, there are some wings on this. And these wings are what really differentiate this design from everything else that we've ever done. You can see they're very close to the shell of the bowling ball. And what they do is they enhance torque-induced precession. And we don't talk too much about torque-induced precession. We're more concerned as bowlers with torque-free precession, the actual flare of the bowling ball. But torque-induced precession is often missed, and it's really important for how your ball holds on to rotation and how it wants to go through the pins as it comes off the end of the pattern. So let's look at a deep dive of this, starting with the precession and how that's going to influence how this bowling ball comes off the end of the pattern. All right, so looking at the numbers of this Morph wing core, we have 2.51 for the RG. Now for an asymmetrical ball, that's a little bit on the higher side. It's not a high RG ball by any means, but most of the ASIMs are in the 247, 248, 249 range. This one being a little higher at 2.51 means it's naturally going to get a little bit further down the lane, through the front of the lane a little bit cleaner. For total differential, we have 0.51. Now that's not really high on the total differential scale, but it is on the higher end. But the big reason for that is at 51 diff, we have plenty of room to go up post drilling if we take this Morph wing out and we make that weight block much skinnier. We can get upwards of 60, even 65 total differential drilling through that. And if we leave it intact, we can actually reduce the total differential into the 40s if we want to. So you can really transform it to how you want to see it come off the end of the pattern. For the intermediate differential, we have 0.15. Now that's a sweet spot for us at Storm because it's asymmetric enough that we can put that PSA different distances away from our positive axis point and see some differences in ball motion, but it's not too much to where it's very sensitive when you drill it. Now, if you hit this Morph wing core, you can bump that up to upwards of 30 intermediate if you need it for your particular game and what you're bowling on. So you can see this is very transformable core in order to get it to do what you want off the end of the pattern for your game in the environment that you're bowling on. Now, you might be asking, where is this Morph wing on the surface of the bowling ball? And we have a diagram on the ball here for you. You'll see that I have a rectangular box on the bowling ball there, and the horizontal lines are at 4 and 5 inches away from the pin towards the PSA. And you can see that line's just drawn directly through the pin, down through the PSA. That Morph wing core is 2.5 inches wide, so 1 1/4 on both sides. If your thumb or your finger holes end up hitting that spot on the ball, you're going to be going directly through that wing and really changing the dynamics of the bowling ball. I mentioned earlier about torque-induced precession, and precession's a big thing in bowling, but we really focus on one kind of precession, and there's actually 2 different kinds of precession. This Morph wing core was designed to look at the opposite side of the precession that we don't really look at in the background of bowling balls, and that's torque-induced precession. So I'm going to give you guys a little crash course on precession here, and you'll see what I'm talking about of what makes this ball completely different than anything that we've done in the past. So what is precession? Precession is the change in orientation of the rotational axis of a rotating body. Now that's a mouthful. What does that mean? It means as something is rotating, there's an axis of rotation. If that axis moves, whether it moves on the surface of the ball or whether the ball itself moves, that is precession. And like I said, there's two different kinds of precession. The first one is torque-free precession. Torque-free is no external torque applied to the body. This is caused by varying moments of inertia. Now, when I say varying moments of inertia, all it means is that when I spin this ball or this bowling ball in different directions, it takes a different amount of energy to rotate the ball. Conveniently, we have a weight block inside the bowling ball. So if I spin it this way or I spin it this way, it's going to spin easier or resist spinning more in one or another of those orientations. So we have varying moments of inertia in a bowling ball. If we put our axis somewhere in between those varying moments of inertia, we'll see torque-free precession, and that is flare. We see those flare rings on our bowling ball. That is our axis migrating along the RG band that it started on. Now, the entire other side of precession that we don't look at as much is torque-induced precession, and this is pure gyroscopic precession. There is an external torque that is applied that is causing the precession. Now that is exactly what these wings do on this morph wing core. When we're drilling into this, if we're missing this wing, you can see how close this wing is to the actual shell of the ball. And it's conveniently placed exactly where your ball migrates to, whether the ball is pin up or pin down, as long as you're using 4 to 5 3/4 inch pin to PAP distances, which are pretty standard in the game today. So those migrations are going to end up right at this, and that's actually going to cause a pull, a torque effect, to cause your ball to continue as it goes through the pins. So again, in bowling, there's almost no emphasis on the torque-induced precession, but on the torque-free precession, we're always looking at the flare of the bowling ball. So what I want to show you guys first is no precession. So you'll see I have a video here, and this video is going to be a ball on a float, and this float actually puts some air underneath the ball. And what it does is it behaves like a very low friction environment. So you'll see when I spin this, I have a little piece of tape on the positive axis point, and you can see that that piece of tape maintains the exact same place as it's spinning the entire time that it's spinning here. You can see the pin rotating around. That might be about 4 inches from that axis of rotation. So this is an example of an object that has the same moment of inertia around all 3 principal axes, and it doesn't have any static imbalance. So it will not change orientation. It will not precess. So that's the very basic side of it here. Now we're going to dive into torque-free precession. Now remember, this is what we look for as bowlers. This is the actual flare of the bowling ball. Now to understand torque-free precession, I have a couple of other visual aids here, and these are very cool because these are actually scribed by hand, the RG bands of the bowling ball. So on the left here, I have a symmetrical bowling ball, and on the right, I have an asymmetrical bowling ball. So if you look at these, each of these bands represents 1/1000th difference in RG value. So when you hear this ball is 2.490, we're talking about the RG value of the X, the pin, the X axis. That's the lowest RG on the ball. If we go 1 band out, then we're at 2.491. If we go 5 bands out, we're at 2.495. So on until we get to the high RG axis, the Y. That's going to be the PSA. That would be the highest RG axis on the bowling ball. So in this example here, 2.542. This is going to be the highest that it gets, and we engrave the PSA on this. Now, as you get further away from that, the RG is getting slightly lower because you're getting closer to the pin, which is the lowest RG axis of the ball. And then on an asymmetrical ball, we do have the intermediate RG as well, and that falls somewhere in between, and it tells us how asymmetrical that the bowling ball is. Now I'm going to show you guys an example of torque-free precession. So again, we have a ball on the ball float here. We're going to start it spinning. And what you see is we go from that yellow colored marker on the axis to a red colored marker, and eventually we'll get to a green colored marker. So you can see that this ball is actually precessing across the surface of the ball, but the orientation of the ball is still facing directly towards us. You can see the axis is pointing straight at the camera there. So this torque-free precession occurs when there's varying moments of inertia across the ball, and it's rotated on an axis that's not one of the three principal axes, because we know that they're stable across those three axes. This could happen faster or slower depending on a few things. If your rev rate's higher, it's going to happen a little bit faster. If you use a stronger layout, it'll happen a little bit faster. And if the ball has more total differential, it will happen a little bit faster as well. I just talked about rev rate a little bit. Here's the effect of rev rate on that torque-free precession. So 115 RPMs, we spun this ball here, and you can see we stay on yellow for a little while, and we get to green, and you can see how slow this is going across the surface of the ball here. Now, likewise, if we go 525 RPMs, and we set this to spin, you'll see that this happens significantly faster. Yellow, green, red. It happens much faster because that rev rate increased, okay? And you'll see something interesting about this is it actually gets all the way around the ball and keeps going in a circle. The ball is never done precessing as it goes down the lane. We just run out of time because our ball hits the pins within a couple of seconds of us throwing it. But the big takeaway here is the faster your rev rate is, the faster torque-free precession happens. Now we're gonna roll some balls down the lane on a ramp. On the picture on the left here, we have the pin at 12 o'clock, so it's going to be at 6 3/4, rotating around a very stable axis. We rotate this, or we roll this down the ramp, and you see we're directly on 20, and we stay on the 20 board the entire way down the lane. We don't see any push or pull, and as you would expect, there's no flare on this because we're rotating this around a stable axis. Now on the picture on the right, all we've done is we've put that pin at 3 3/8 inches away from the positive axis point. So we know that this is going to have some free precession and it's going to flare. Do we think this is going to go straight, or is there going to be some push or pull? Let's see what happens as we roll this ball directly down 20 once again. And you see, amazingly, it stays on 20 the entire way down the lane and behaves exactly like the ball on the left, regardless of all this flare on the bowling ball. And I think that's a common misconception. People look at flare and think that it directly affects the push or the pull or the rotation of the bowling ball, and it doesn't. Now that doesn't mean that it's not important, because it is exposing fresh new cover stock to the lane. And when we roll a bowling ball, we're not rolling it straight, we actually have some rotation to it. So the more fresh cover we expose to the lane, the more friction possibilities we're going to have that's going to make that ball line up in the direction of our rotation. So that was just kind of an overview of torque-free precession, and that's what we focus on as bowlers, the flare of the bowling ball. But we really want to talk about what makes this design of this morph wing core unique, and that is torque-induced precession. It enhances torque-induced precession more than any design that we've ever done in the past. And we're going to look at torque-induced precession right now. To understand it, we need to understand the center of mass. Okay, the center of mass is just a singular point in the ball where the mass in every direction relative to that point is equally distributed. So wherever that point is, every direction that you look, the mass is exactly the same. It's balanced. Now this is not to be confused with the geometric center of the ball. In my example on screen here, I'm going to zoom in. This is a CAD image of that morph wing core. We'll zoom in. And we'll zoom in one more time here, and you can see that there's two different X's in this CAD program. One is the actual geometric center of the bowling ball, and the other is the center of mass. You can see they're very close together, but they're not quite in the same place. And if you actually draw a line directly through both of those X's to the surface of the bowling ball, you get the center of gravity. And you'll notice that the center of gravity always falls very close to where this morph wing core is. And that's going to be a huge part of what helps keep this torque-induced precession as the ball goes down the lane. This inner weight block is 2.5 to 3 times heavier than this core material. So if we preserve some of that, we're keeping a lot more of that torque effect of that arm compared to when we're drilling it out, we can make the ball go significantly more forward. And you're gonna see how this affects rotation right now. So as we look at torque-induced precession, we have a left-handed and a right-handed example here. You're gonna notice a big difference when I start playing this. You'll see that we don't have multiple colored markers on the axis point anymore. You notice that there's only one, it's yellow. And that yellow axis is actually staying in the same place on the bowling ball, but the bowling ball itself is actually precessing. This is much harder to pick up with your eye and is a big reason why this is overlooked in the bowling industry. The right-handed example is exactly the opposite. That imbalance is on the other side of the ball. And you can see, once again, we don't see any precession across the surface of the ball. The entire ball itself is actually precessing and changing its rotation. How does rev rate affect this? We looked at it on torque-free. In torque-induced, we have 120 RPMs here, and I want you to watch how fast that pin spins around the bowling ball here. We let it go an entire 1.5 rotations, and it took around 10 seconds to go all the way around. Now remember, on torque-free, if we increased the rev rate, we saw a much faster rate of precession. This is a little bit counterintuitive. We double the rev rate here. Look at how much slower this torque-induced precession is going. Same entire 1.5 trips around the ball takes twice as long with double the rev rate. So this is great news for you guys with lower rev rates or lower ball speed, because this is going to be working even harder for you. Now, it doesn't mean that if your rev rate's really high or your speed is high, that it doesn't matter. It just has a little bit less effect on it. So as rev rate increases, that torque-induced precession has a little bit less effect on rotation. Again, we're going to roll some balls down the lane, and I want you to see the big difference on what happens with the rotation of the ball here. On the left, again, pin is at 12 o'clock here, so it's around a 6 3/4 inch pin, and you'll notice that that yellow axis actually stays in the same place, and the ball gains rotation as it goes down the lane. No flare at all because we're on one of the stable axes. Now, right-handed example here, again, pin at 12 o'clock. We just have the imbalance on the other side there. You can see that it's not migrating, it's not free precessing at all, but it is gaining rotation through torque-induced precession. Now, this is obviously an extreme example because we're not throwing the ball this slow, but your ball will hold on to a little bit more rotation and want to pull a little bit more to the left or to the right with this morph wing core because these wings are so close to the surface of the ball and they're extremely heavy. So just a quick summary. We started with no precession. Remember, that was when we rotated the ball that had no varying moments of inertia and no static imbalance, stays in the same place the entire time. We then moved on to torque-free only. That was when the ball is precessing on the surface of the ball, but the ball itself is not actually rotating at all. So we see it go from the 3 different colored markers while it's facing directly towards the camera. We then moved on to torque-induced, which we spun it around a stable axis, so we don't see any free precession. But what do we see? We see the actual ball precessing gyroscopically there, and that has a huge influence on rotation. And then it gets really confusing because both of these things are happening when we throw a bowling ball down the lane. So you'll see we're actually getting those colored markers to change, and the bowling ball is precessing as well. So the combination of these two is really what makes this morph wing core and the transformer really transform your game and transform how that ball comes off the end of the pattern to anything that you're going to be bowling on. All right, that was a technical deep dive on torque-induced precession and really looking into this morph wing core and the transformer. What we want to do now is we want to put it to the test. We're going to have a very special two-handed guest where we're going to drill both above, below, and directly through that morph wing to see how that ball comes off the end of the pattern for our two-handed players. And then I'm going to also throw the ball, more of a traditional one-handed player, and I'll drill one where my thumb hole hits that morph wing core, takes all that mass out, and I'll do another one where it's directly in the center of my grip and it's maintained throughout the drilling. So you're going to see some very different ball reaction off the end of the pattern and how much this ball goes through the pins with these different layouts from both one and two-handed players. Hey SPI fans, Alex Hoskins here with you, and today I have a very special guest, multiple-time PBA Tour titleist and major champion, Anthony Simonson. Now Anthony, today we're going to be drilling a brand new Rotogrip release, the Transformer. Now I want to lead off with a question. How often are you using strong asymmetrical equipment out there on the PBA Tour?
I'm able to use it for sure at least game one. Sometimes I can stretch it into game two. Normally don't make it into game three. So it's a pretty short window that I'm able to use those really strong asymmetric balls.
You're kind of limited. There's so much rev rate out there. Sometimes there may not be enough volume out on the lane. So what's great about this Transformer is we have a brand new core and cover stock combination, the VR1 solid reactive cover with this brand new morph wing core, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But basically you can drill your finger holes either above, below, or directly into this wing of this core, and it's going to transform how your ball goes down the lane and comes off the end of the pattern. So that's going to give you a little bit bigger window, hopefully, to throw this ball.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I always like being able to use balls for a little bit longer time, not have to change as much. So I'm looking forward to transforming my arsenal.
Perfect. Let's go drill one and see what you think. All right, Anthony, you just got done drilling all three of these transformers. Now, what we did with the layouts was we kept the same pin to PAP distance and PSA to PAP distance, but what we did is we changed that third number in the 2LS system. We changed that pin to center of grip number. We did 2 inches, 4 inches, and 6 inches for those three distances. Now the 4-inch one actually puts your finger holes directly through that morph wing on that core. So that's gonna make the ball feel the earliest. We'll probably start by throwing that one, and then we'll throw the other two and see how much more you can shape it with those other two balls.
Sounds good.
All right, so you just got done throwing the 4-inch pin to COG. Remember, that's the one that went straight through that morph wing core. What are you seeing out of that?
Pretty early, really continuous motion. It's a ball that I would think I would use a significant amount. I really like the balls where I can kind of dictate the motion down lane. And I feel like I can do this with that medium 4-inch pin to center of grip layout.
And you're on the fresh here, so you feel like it gives you plenty of control on the fresh, right? You don't want something that gets to the end of the pattern and it's really responsive off the end of the pattern.
Absolutely. I'm very big on using the control balls for as long as possible. So that's something that I will definitely lean towards and try to use as often as I can.
So let's have you throw a few more shots with this, break the lane down a little bit more, and then we'll actually have you go up to the 6-inch distance now. So now we're below that morph wing, and we're gonna see what kind of shape that we see, how it transforms on the lane, and if you're able to use that from a different part of the lane a little bit more effectively.
So now I'm switching to the 6-inch pin to center of grip transformer. I'm gonna stand in the same spot here and see what reaction we have.
A lot more shape down lane, right? You
Yeah.
can see it gets off there and it just came off of it significantly harder than the 4-inch one did.
Yeah, after throwing that 4-inch pin it kind of startled me how quick that it came off the spot. My original thought was this ball was gonna be pretty smooth, but clearly after that shot, it shows that you can transform your motion just on the layout itself.
So let's go a little bit further left, see if you can still get it to shape while getting it through that front part of the lane. Let's see how it goes through the pins from a little bit further left.
So this first shot after the big four, I'm gonna go ahead and move my feet 3 boards to the left.
Man. All right, Simo, you just got done throwing the 6-inch pin to center of grip distance. What did you see on the lanes from that?
I think the thing that impresses me most with the 6-inch pin to center of grip is normally when I do balls with that tall of a pin, they tend to get a little forward down lane. This one seems like it's not having any problems being continuous off of the spot. And so far I've seen 2 different motions out of 2 different layouts, so that's pretty neat.
Yeah, exactly. When we get the fingers further away from the pin, we increase the diff, we make the ball stronger, so usually it flares out and kind of bleeds through the front part of the lane, gets a little bit more forward down lane. But with this morph wing core, you've totally missed that morph wing arm there. So what it does is it's actually pulling that ball to the left as it goes down the lane, and that's why you're seeing more continuation out of that 6-inch pin to COG distance. So let's go the exact opposite direction. We'll go to the 2-inch distance, much closer to the pin, kind of a more traditional layout that you would normally use. And let's see what that looks like on the lane.
All right. All right, so that last shot after moving 3 boards went pretty high flush, so I'm gonna go ahead and move another 2, and that should put me in my comfort zone.
All right, we can see that we've clearly got more response down lane, right? Much cleaner, faster change of direction down lane. What are you gonna do in a situation like this now when you're kind of not quite lined up here yet?
With as responsive as that ball was, I'm gonna be making a pretty good move here. I'm gonna start with 3, I think, make my first shot and go from there. I generally don't tend to make moves much larger than 3, unless there's some drastic things happening out on the lane. So let's make the move and see what it looks like.
All right, Anthony, you just got done throwing the 2-inch pin to center of grip distance. Now, this is a more traditional layout, pin just above the fingers there. What did you see on the lanes here?
You know, significantly cleaner, especially than that 4-inch one, and a massive change of direction. Change of direction might be a little too sharp for what I'm used to using, but it is something to be able to see the vast changes from just the pin to center of grip distances. So I think this is going to be very useful for me. I'm a guy that when I find a ball that works, I like to tweak it a little bit. Yeah. And this one seems really easy to tweak, and that's something I'm gonna look forward to using.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we used the same pin to PAP distance, 5¼ inches on all these, and you saw such a drastic change in reaction. And remember back to the start, you were talking about that window is kind of short to use this sometime, and you really just hit on it. You can drill a couple of these and really open that window up of how long this ball is usable for, and I think that's going to be a big benefit for you guys out there.
Yeah, I was able to move across the lane pretty easily and never once really had to worry about my ball burning up and going forward, which, as you mentioned, it'll be something that I'm really looking forward to using out on the tour season.
All right, Anthony, we just got done throwing the 3 different transformers, and I think you really got firsthand experience here at how much different we could create ball motion off the end of the pattern with those different balls transforming that reaction. Which one was your favorite out of the 3 that you drilled?
I think for me, my favorite would be the 4-inch pin to center of grip. It's just the smoothest, the most controllable out of the group. Those are the balls that I tend to use. And just a quick note, I would like to point out that had you had told me that those balls were all the same pin to pap, I would have called you crazy. So, you know, it's been fun getting to do this. I got to learn a little bit more. I'm looking forward to transforming my bag in the future.
Yeah, so Transformer, head to your local Storm VIP Pro Shop. The release date is January 23rd. You're not gonna wanna miss this one. Have fun out there and bowl up a storm. Hey SPI fans, Alex Hoskins here with you, and today we're gonna be talking about the Transformer once again. This time we have a traditional player that uses his thumb in Giorgio Clinas. Giorgio is our quality and development manager, and he's a big part of ball testing here. Gio, I want to ask you a question to start. When you're ball testing and we're using strong asymmetrical equipment, what are you looking for that really separates a very good strong asym versus one that maybe doesn't get as much play?
Since I throw a little slower and let's say I'm rev dominant, I tend to look for those type of asymmetric balls that don't lock too much in the mid lane because they tend to force me farther left, and then I get in the part of the lane or the part of the pattern where it gets a little flatter, it gets a little more difficult. So I like those type of balls that tend to be a little cleaner in the mid lane and it shapes more down the lane. So for me and my game, those tend to be more versatile.
And you've been a big part of the development of this brand new transformer. And what this is the first ever design that strictly looks at torque-induced precession. And that's going to be a big driver for how our ball comes off the end of the pattern, especially for somebody like you. So what we're going to do today is drill two different balls. We're going to do one to enhance the torque-induced precession and one to inhibit it. And what that'll do is transform how that ball comes off the end of the pattern. So let's drill a couple of balls for you. We'll oil the lanes, have you throw some balls from some different angles, and see what your thoughts are.
Perfect, let's do it.
All right, we have two different transformers here for Gio, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna manipulate the drillings on these to either go through or miss that morph wing to enhance or inhibit torque-induced precession. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw a line directly from the pin through the PSA. I'm gonna go from the center of the pin, and I'm going to make a mark at 4 inches and at 5 inches. If you remember, that's exactly where that wing is on the surface of the ball. From there, I'm going to mark a spot at 1 1/4 on both sides there. And then all I'm going to do is connect all of those lines in order to show us where that wing is. All right, Gio's a little bit more on the rev dominant side, so we're gonna use a little bit weaker pin distance. We'll go with 5 inches on his pin to PAP distance. I'll take my storm arc ruler here and draw my first arc at 5 inches. For his PSA to PAP distance, again, we kind of want to get that further away from his axis point, so we will go with a 5-inch PSA to PAP distance here. Where those 2 points cross is his positive axis point. Now, in order to miss this with our holes, we want to use a little bit shorter pin buffers. This is going to cause that transition to happen a little faster. We can do a 2-inch pin buffer up here. Now, you remember, we draw our VAL, which is directly through our positive axis point and tangent to the pin buffer. Okay, so tangent means it only touches it in one place there. Now, Gio's PAP is 4 3/4 over and 1 inch up. So we reverse that. We go 1 inch down and we're gonna go 4 3/4 inches over, making sure that our lines are nice and square to each other, okay? So once we get that, this right here is going to be the center of Gio's grip, okay? His span is about 4 cut to cut, so I'll just make a mark at 2 up and 2 down. And what I can do is just quickly draw where these holes are gonna end up on that ball there. And you can see that we completely miss that morph wing core. So a lot of that heavy weight block material is gonna be out here close to the shell of the ball. And that's gonna enhance torque-induced precession and cause that ball to pull to the left significantly more. All right, now that we have his layout that's enhancing torque-induced precession, let's flip over and do one that actually goes directly through the wing. So same process as before. We'll draw our line from the pin directly through the PSA there. We're gonna measure from the center of the pin and go at 4 and 5 inches. From there, from our center line here, we're gonna measure 1 1/4 over on both sides. And then we're gonna connect each of those lines in order to get our morph wing location there. Okay, so again, for Gio, we're gonna go same pin to PAP distance, a little bit on the weaker side just because he does have a little bit more rev rate. So we're gonna keep that 5-inch pin to PAP distance. What I'm gonna do, because his PAP is so far up, is I'm gonna increase this PSA to PAP distance up to 6 inches here. And you'll see why here in a minute. That's gonna move this box over to the left a little bit more and get it closer to where his holes are gonna actually hit. The longer the pin buffer gets, the more the holes move upward, the lower the pin gets. That's gonna get our thumb hole much closer to this. So what I'm gonna do for him is a 4 3/4 inch pin buffer distance right there. So you can see this is a very tight distance here with the pin to PAP. So once again, I go directly through the PAP and tangent to the pin buffer there. So again, through here, tangent only touching in one place here. Once again, Gio's PAP is 4 3/4 over and 1 up. So we'll go 1 down and we will go 4 3/4 back over to get his center of grip there. We'll draw his center line right here, and remember his span is right at 4. So we'll draw 2 up and 2 down, which will put his holes here, and his thumb hole right there, which you can see is directly through that morph wing rectangle. So that's gonna inhibit torque-induced precession, cause that ball to go a little bit more forward. Let's have Gio throw these 2 balls now, see what differences we see on the lane. All right, Gio, we got the balls drilled, we've got the lanes oiled. What I want you to do is start with the one that we hit the wing, the one that's inhibiting torque-induced precession. Okay. I think you're gonna like that a little more on the fresh because it's gonna be a little bit smoother off the end of the pattern. Let's get lined up with that, throw a few shots, and then we'll switch to the other one and kind of get some feedback on what you think.
Okay, let's do it. So anywhere in the lane?
Wherever you feel, yep, just line up as you normally would, and then we'll compare the other one.
Okay.
All right, Gio, just got done throwing the smoother version, right? The longer pin buffer where we hit the wing, we inhibit torque-induced precession. What did you see on the lanes out there?
Well, I kind of saw that what you're talking about. It seems like the ball seems predictable. It sees the milling a good amount. It's not jackknife in the back part of the pattern. When they're crispy in the back, I want that control. That's exactly what's giving me.
Okay, so now that you've thrown a couple of balls with the smoother version, let's have you switch to that shorter pin buffer version where you actually miss the wing. You're gonna have that wing actually pulling that ball to the left a lot more. You should see a little bit more shape. Throw that first ball in the exact same spot that you kind of were with those. We'll see what happens and then make any adjustment that you need to strike.
Okay, let's do it. So stand exactly the same as I was with the...
Yep, and we'll just see what happens on the lane and then make your adjustment based off what you see there.
Perfect, so... That one definitely hooked more, so I'm gonna have to adjust. Probably I'm gonna move 3 or 4 left.
Okay.
From the 3/16, that's my usual move, so I would say, yeah, I'm gonna move 3 left and see what happens here. But it does seem like it shapes a lot more in the back for sure.
All right, Gio. Yeah, you just got done throwing the shorter buffer one where we missed the wing, remember that enhances torque-induced precession, and you could see it looked like you had to make a pretty big move left. What happened?
Yeah, I was actually standing around 24, 25 with a longer pin buffer one, and it looked good and fresh. Obviously, when I started throwing the pin-up one, the shorter pin buffer one, it felt like it started forcing me left. There might be a combination with the lane pattern also breaking down a little bit. I ended up moving like 6, 7 left, and that ball just kept shaping. It felt like it shaped a lot.
Definitely no problem with getting it to shape off the end of the pattern. And again, that's really that morph wing core still being intact in there, that wing pulling that ball to the left. So what I want you to do now is actually go back to the longer one where you hit the wing. And I just want you to see from that more open angle and with more rotation, how much harder it is to get that ball to kind of continue to go left. So that's generally going to be better for players that play a little straighter, where you're clearly going to like this one where you can kind of get more left into your A game. So let's switch back to that other one and see what you think.
Okay. And stand the same as?
Same as your last shot.
Okay.
Yeah. Further left there. A little bit more rotation. Let's see what it does.
Okay. Let's see it.
All right, Gio, you threw a couple of more balls. Again, going back to the one where you hit the wing that wants to go a little bit more forward because of that torque-induced precession. What'd you see on the lanes?
Well, I kind of threw it a little bit all over the place. I missed one that was a little right and one that was more like on the oil type of area. And it did make it back to the pocket, but I felt that the ball was getting a little forward. It was not really continuing as much. So for the part of the lane that I'm bowling at, I will pick the one with the shorter buffer. It feels that that one continues better, so it goes through the piece better. The carry will be better.
Yeah, definitely not 250 ball reaction with that last one there. You feel like with the one where you miss the wing, more torque-induced precession really helps that keep going through 100%. The pins, which is really what you're looking for there. So that's a big thing when drilling these. If you want to go from a little bit straighter angles, generally you're going to want to use the longer buffers, and if you want to be a little bit more open, you're going to use the shorter buffers.
Totally.
So make sure you stop by your local Storm VIP Pro Shop. January 23rd is the release date for the Transformer. Brand new technology, torque-induced precession. It's going to transform how your ball goes down the lane.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to Hank Boomershine, our Chief Technical Officer, talk about the Transformer. And you got to see Alex Hoskins and Simo throw that Transformer down the lane and throw lots of strikes. This is exactly why we created the Innovation Department. It's to push the boundaries of our products, create better products for you, the bowler, and to really just give that innovation to this line. When the concept was first introduced of the Morph Wing core, I was really excited to see it really come to fruition and down the lane, and how the core can be transformed by your drilling technique is truly amazing. I don't think I've ever seen a bowling ball in my 30 years of experience have this much variation between the drillings. It truly is unique and is our first product in the innovation line that truly brings Hank Boomershine's skills to the table. Here at Storm, we really believe in education, and with Hank's role in the innovation department, part of that he's taught me is how important the shape of the bowling ball, the design is. And he's going to be leading an innovation tour across the country, informing pro shops on the shape of this. And one of the things that really hit me was almost 15 years ago, Hank designed the Planet Series bowling balls. And it was a really high RG weight block, but it outperformed anything that I've ever seen. And that's where Hank's information and his creativity and really his craft of being the best bowling ball designer in the world really comes to be one of the best. So I can't wait for Hank to get out there and share his information and share his knowledge and educate the pro shops and the consumers on this bowling ball that he's created. Well, thanks for tuning into our live show. Coming up next is Hank Boomershine to talk to you more about the Morph Wing core and how to drill this transformer. And let me tell you what, I've been drilling balls since I was 12 years old, and I'm so excited about this core and what you can do with it. Please come to Hank with some questions, because I don't think I've ever seen a core that can have so much different reaction from a pin up to a pin down as this Morph Wing and the transformer. So I really thank you for watching this live show and your support of Storm Products Incorporated. Thanks for everything, and bowl up a storm.
All right, Hank, we're talking a little bit here. Look at we've got our little transformer guy right here, and we've got a few questions to go over as we've watched a great presentation by yourself and your team with Alex and Simo getting in there and all that stuff. What I wanted to ask first is why is this core shape so tunable?
I mean, the biggest thing, Gary, is you got to remember that those two wings, and anytime any core, I mean, there's a bunch of them sitting on the desk behind me, but they're all, every single shape that's ever been built is tunable. It's all about where you put the masses in. Some you put masses in places that you're trying to avoid hitting the shape and keeping the mass integrity and dynamic integrity of the bowling ball intact. But in a shape like this, with this and the tuning of it, the biggest thing is about getting that wing in the alignment, like Alex was talking about, is trying to create that wing out close to the surface. You create another torque factor in that ball and in that as it's flaring, and you have those wings rotating close to the surface. And we don't touch, we don't drill into that or take that out. That enhances axis rotation, and we know that axis rotation, and we know that precession, we can increase entry angle to the pocket, and that can increase carry. That was a huge thing. And a lot of the shapes over the years all have a little bit of tunability to them, but we were trying to, do even more. So on the other hand, if you have somebody who's a high speed, high rev guy that likes to control it a little bit more, you can we can drill that wing out. And so now we've got part of that wing out. Sorry, got to get it in the camera. So we take that wing out of it, and we lose a little bit of that torque-induced precession, and we let that ball go a little more forward. So I think what happens to us is a lot of times these big asymmetrical balls, everybody gets a little scared because they want to torque around, spin around to their PSA, and then they want to go forward. They lose axis rotation, and sometimes they lose axis rotation. Sometimes the asymmetrical balls feel like they don't go through the pins as well when they do lose all this axis rotation, and they do get a little forward. With a ball like this, that we can either do that, we can lose a little bit of that in situations where we want it, where Simo liked taking that wing out of it, using on the fresh, controlling it because the backs are fresh. You're going to have very clean back ends, and sometimes we don't want over shape, so this controls it. And then as you move left, and you saw Gio as he was moving left and using one where we hit the wing, it was a little bit, he had to help it a little to, and then the one that he misses the wing, that wing moving around close to that surface along that precession path where that axis migrates across the surface and that gets closer, just enhances that. This technology is, once again, it's been around in a lot of different shapes over the years, but never been pushed to the limit that we've pushed it now. So that's the cool thing about it.
All right, very cool, Hank. Thanks for sharing a little bit. We're going to give away a couple transformers, and we can't ship them out right away today to you, of course. But Hank, our first winner is Mike Keen, who is watching, I believe, on Facebook, and then we'll have a second winner coming up from our YouTube watchers. We'll share that here as we close out the show. But Mike Keen, email blair.b@stormbowling.com because you just won a transformer yourself. A lot of questions. Obviously, every time we use our pros, Hank, you know how we get beat up a little bit about using our high rev pros
Sure.
and all that good stuff. But our pros are great shot makers, and they give you a lot of feedback from what they're really seeing because they repeat shots really well. Whether they're higher revs or someone like your wife Lindsay, who's always in here doing tests, they're just really great shot makers. And what kind of benefit does this technology bring to just an average league bowler?
I think the biggest thing that in something like this, and any shapes where we start create a little bit enhanced precession and trying to create, what it does is like Gio. If you heard Gio, and it's funny when he said, "Oh, I missed a little right on that one, it still got back." The pros are hitting these inches, half inches on the lane, and they're keeping it within a launch angle that's tenths and 3/10 of a degree difference in angle. Where us that doesn't bowl as much anymore, and our average bowlers that don't get a chance to practice and hone their game and hone their skills as much, we do have a little tendency for a little bit of misroom. So a shape like this, we always say, gives us a little bit of forgiveness, a little bit more forgiveness. There's been a ton of them out there in the industry. This isn't new that there's forgiveness, but what we did do is by putting that mass in that place closer around that center of gravity, because a lot of times the way we drill them, the axis migrates across and gets closer to the center of gravity as it's traveling down the lane. That means that lets that ball gain a little bit of axis rotation, lets us get a little more entry angle to the pocket, and lets us get that knocks 6 into the 10 a little bit more times, or a 4 into the 7 for the left-handers. If I leak it 1 or 2 right, that enhanced axis rotation, or that rotation, allows us to get a little bit more back to the pocket. We might catch a light shaker strike. So that kind of forgiveness is kind of built in a little bit greater in a shape like this.
All right. Thanks for the explanation. A lot of people are asking Hank about HP5. This is a new thing for RotoGrip. HP5, and years ago, as Tyler alluded to, you've been our ball designer for a lot of years. Now you do it with a team collaboration. But HP5 and the RotoGrip line, how come? Why are we so excited about this tech in that new category?
I think the biggest thing is you've added even more technology to it, and it is a process and a shape, and the things that went into it to create it create more value for it too. So something like this, if we looked at the golf industry and building a driver, and you change materials and you change the methodology of how things are put together, it affords a little bit higher level of grading. And so now we're up to an HP5 from an HP4, because there is even more technology being brought forward. And so I think the value is there with the performance. It's not just throwing more, price to it. It's no, we're throwing more performance to it.
All right, very good. And yeah, listen, I think the price is going to please people with all that technology that's packed into it. Someone saw earlier, they said this thing's going to be like a $300 ball. I really don't think it is when it's all said and done, huh, Hank?
Probably not.
Probably not. All right. So the cover stock is interesting. You always talk about pairing up cores and covers, and it's the combination that creates the magic, right? This is the art of, I think, what you guys do. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, why did you pick this cover stock to pair with this core? And also development. This is not something that was developed new. Our innovation department is new as of about 6 months ago, but this has been developed for how long would you say this has been in the works?
This procession technology and our moving down the path of trying to design more around this, putting this mass in these spots to create enhanced torque-induced procession, has been going on for a long time. This particular shape, probably about 2 years in early development start to where it is today. So about 2 years of Alex and myself and those conversations and those drawings and the first iterations in Pro E and our CAD technology, and then kind of progressing down the road of just building the shape. And then now let's pair this cover stock to it. We put a VR1 cover stock on it, which is nano free cover. It's trying to, in our world, that shape is very strong, very aggressive, and can be very continuous for an asymmetric ball. So we also wanted to create and put the cover on it that matched up with it the best. We put, I think, 4 or 5, maybe 6 different covers we kind of tinkered around with. And Simo was a big help in this with us too, is dialing in the right covers too, just based on the speeds and the rev rates. And then Klemkin and Chad McLean and my wife Lindsay and Alex and Gio and myself, and there's a plethora of people. I mean, you probably, in our office, you got a lot of great players that have the chance that we can see a lot of different styles with tilts and axis rotations and things. But unanimously, this was the cover that everybody said, this this matches up to this core the best. And so this is where it falls, and this is where the first release in the solid comes to market.
All right, Hank, a lot of people asking about the innovation tour. Now, this is exciting for our industry folks, and you're going on this weekend. I mean, you're leaving probably tomorrow to get going or the next day. And the purpose of the innovation tour that you're going on is a 13 city tour where all of our industry professionals are invited to come out and learn from you, not only on this project, but also other projects that you've got cooking. And it's some training. You're talking and sharing this innovation and explaining so that our pro shop operators can better serve the end user, the bowler, and get these things drilled properly and performing at their maximum. Right, Hank?
Yeah, and the innovation tour, it's 13 cities. I'm gonna leave on Sunday. My first one's Monday in Arlington, at the actually ITRC. And this is for the industry professionals. We wanted to do this broadcast and kind of let the world see this of what we're going to be talking about. And then down the road, we'll release some of these videos and some of this stuff that the general public can tune in and try to understand a little bit more about this technology. But I think the biggest thing on this innovation tour is that we're going to really try to educate about this torque-induced precession. Alex and I have been teaching this at the Innovative Pro Shop School for the last couple of years, and the shops that have come, we kind of blow their mind. And then when they put it to practical use, they're like, wait a minute, there's more to this. I think us and me being on the road and talking about this, there's even more that we can do with not just an asymmetrical bowling ball, but with a symmetrical ball as well too. And there's some things that we're going to talk about out there as well. It just gives a great opportunity for the shops to get a better understanding and get some time to ask us some questions too, because we're gonna be in a room for a little bit, but I'm gonna talk for not as long as I want to listen to them talk, and I want to hear what their questions and their feedback, and try to get some just some general information from them, so that moving forward with us in the innovation side, we can continue to bring and push stuff forward into the market that was asked for, not just thrown out there because, oh, we think this is a good idea. No. This precession technology has really been brought around a lot from the professionals and us tinkering with layouts that we've been doing on certain balls over the years and trying to enhance that motion in those situations for them. And they're the greatest ones to test on. And then we've transferred it to the people in house, to some of the local players, and really trying to drive it home. And this innovation tour allows us that chance to get out in front of these pro shops across the country and feed them some more technology, but also gain some more information of what they'd like to see, from us.
All right, Hank. We're also excited to be launching a brand new webpage dedicated to Transformer and all things Transformer, and that's going to be coming out. Check the website out tomorrow, please, for that. Hank, I appreciate everything that your team and the innovation team is doing because you guys are creating what's next for all of us that love to bowl, and we appreciate it. I want to let you just close the show today after we announce our second winner, which is our YouTube winner, Walton D93. Walton D93. If you're still with us, you just want a transformer, send an email to blair.b@stormbowling.com. Hank, we're going to let you close out this show, and thanks for spending New Year's at HQ with me and Blair, and getting this information out to our general public. And final closing words, Hank.
I mean, innovation is a big thing, and innovation that we're bringing to you, with a transformer, is something that spent a lot of time and effort to create and help, enhance the game. But this has been going on for several years, and a lot of the shapes, like I said, you see behind me there with a nucleus core, and then you've got the one from the invasion core back there where there's masses and things cut out of it in certain spots to try to enhance or maintain dynamic integrity. and we've been doing it for decades. But with this one, we've pushed the envelope farther forward. And this is the first one, and there's many more to come. But on the innovation side, it's not just about bowling balls. It's about other things in bowling that can help the player, the pro shop operator, and the coach to play the game at a level higher than or better than what they are, or let them understand more about what they're doing. And I think Tyler's been very gracious to afford me the chance to tinker and dabble more than I ever have with this. And so with the team, myself and Alex and a few others, there's many more things to come, and I can't really let on too much. But 2026, there's going to be something brought to light that's been needed in the industry for 20 years that's going to make the pro shop operators' ability to gain information so much easier. And there's going to be some things that allow the player to track and do about their own game, not just the bowling ball that they throw down the lane, but many other data that they can gather. So the coolest thing is, this is, like I said, I enjoy bringing this technology. It's fun to me, it's not a job. I get to come to work every day, and I get to explore, and I get to test and experiment with some of the greatest minds between Alex and Steve and Chad and Gio and all those guys down there. It's such a team effort that we try to get this done, and I've been fortunate to be part of it for a long time, and I'm excited to come out and go out on the road and get to see some of these shops and share this information, share this knowledge, and share that message of what Storm Products is all about.